This Week 10 matchup against the Rams will be the third divisional game for the Seahawks in just the last 4 weeks, with another divisional matchup next week against the Arizona Cardinals on Thursday night. And with the NFC West being one of the best divisions in the NFL, it is very clear that this has been the toughest part of the Seahawks schedule this year, and the Seahawks have lost 2 games out of the 3 that they've played. Going into their 4th game against the Rams, they are definitely going to be looking to come out with the win. The Seahawks are going into this with still a lot of injuries, with Shaquille Griffin being out once again with the hamstring issue. Brian Monet will be out for this game as well, and although he's not a big name for the Seahawks defense, this does open up the window for Snacks Harrison to have his debut against the Rams in Week 10. Chris Carson and Carlos Hyde are both once again questionable for this game, and neither of them really look like they have a great shot at playing. Chris Carson didn't practice the entire week, and he's going to be definitely a game time decision. Carlos Hyde actually did have limited participation on Friday. He'll be a game time decision, so we'll have to see what happens there. But honestly, this is really a game where we need Chris Carson or Carlos Hyde to be able to play, because Deejay Dallas and Travis Homer, although they're good players, they have not been able to pick it up in the run game. And for the Seahawks defense, like I said, Shaquille Griffin is going to be out for this game, but Quentin Dunbar, Benson Mayowa, KJ Wright, and Alden Robinson are all questionable for this game, and those are some pretty key names when it comes to our defense. And when it comes to the Rams, they're not dealing with too many injuries. They have a couple of questionable players, but honestly, the Rams are most likely going to be at full strength this week against the Seahawks. Last week against the Miami Dolphins, the Rams ended up losing 28-17 in a very ugly loss. Although the Dolphins did score 28 points, this was by no means a defensive loss for the Rams. The defense played very well for the Rams, but honestly, this was just a loss for the offense and Jared Goff. The Miami Dolphins only had 145 total offensive yards compared to the Rams' 171 in that game. So honestly, it's pretty obvious that the defense did really well for the Rams, but Jared Goff was throwing interceptions, the Rams were fumbling, and honestly, like we saw last week with the Seahawks against the Bills, it's not easy to win a game where your team has 4 turnovers. In that Week 9 game against the Dolphins, the Rams only allowed the Dolphins to gain 8 first downs, which is honestly a very good defensive game for the Rams. It really just sucks for the Rams defense that Jared Goff was throwing interceptions, the Dolphins had kickoff return touchdowns, fumble return touchdowns. Honestly, it was a great defensive game by the Dolphins, not a great offensive game, but it was definitely a good defensive game for the Rams. They just came out with a loss because their offense was turning the ball over way too much. And what this game shows us is that the Seahawks defense is definitely going to have to pick it up if they want to win this game or even be comfortable in this game, because the Miami Dolphins offense is nowhere near as talented as the Rams offense. Their defense played great, and the Rams defense is great, so their offense really didn't have to play insanely well for the Dolphins. The Dolphins defense just forced turnovers, they got kickoff touchdowns, they got a lot of special teams and defensive touchdowns to help their offense. They put their offense in good positioning, and that's what allowed them to win. And I think the Seahawks have a much better offense than the Dolphins. It's pretty obvious. But the Seahawks defense has been just pushovers this entire year, so the Seahawks defense are definitely going to have to pick it up, not let the offense actually look like a good offense, and then we might actually have a chance to win this game and win it convincingly. The Rams are definitely a strong running team, being a top 10 rushing offense behind Darrell Henderson, Cam Akers, and Malcolm Brown. They're basically just a running back by committee, and they're talented and they're deep at the running back spot, and we definitely have to play some good running defense, because honestly, this is definitely a team that does well with Malcolm Brown and Darrell Henderson being consistent 4.5 yards per carry guys. And in the passing game, Jared Goff is definitely a talented quarterback. I don't think he's anywhere near as talented as Josh Allen is. Josh Allen is definitely one of the best quarterbacks that we are going to play this entire season, and he absolutely torched us. And Jared Goff, although he's not great, I definitely think that our defense is going to make him look like an insanely good quarterback, but hopefully our defense will be able to pick it up, because Jared Goff is honestly, like Jimmy Garoppolo, not going to be one of the best quarterbacks that we play this season. Like I said, Jared Goff is definitely talented, but he's not spectacular. He has a lot of great players like Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, and some other really solid 3rd, 4th, 5th wide receiver options, but he's really just not playing up to the standards of a guy that's on such a talented, such a deep team on offense. With 13 touchdowns and 6 interceptions on the season, Jared Goff is by no means a bad quarterback, but he's not a spectacular quarterback. Josh Allen, I think, is much better than Jared Goff is, and Jared Goff, he's pretty inconsistent. He did really poorly last game, but he's also had some really good games this year. I think he'll do fine against the Seahawks defense, who is insanely bad in the secondary, but honestly, I don't think he's going to be the reason for our downfall. I think this is really going to come down to a Seahawks offense versus Rams defense type of game. And for that Rams defense, this is definitely a team that we have to watch out for. The Rams are a top 5 defensive team, one of the best in the league. They have stars like Aaron Donald. Jalen Ramsey is going to be playing this week, so we're going to have to watch out. They have a ton of star talent, and then they have a ton of solid guys behind those star talents. And this is definitely just a solid defensive group all around. Our pass protection is not great. Our offensive line is not great. They've been playing around average this year, which is much better than they have before. But Aaron Donald is definitely someone that can come in and just wreck the game if we don't focus on him enough. Jalen Ramsey is a talented corner, one of the best in the NFL, and I'd assume that he's probably going to be going up against DK Metcalf like he did last year, and that's definitely going to be a super interesting matchup. I think DK Metcalf might win some of those matchups. I think Jalen Ramsey might win some of those matchups. Honestly, I think it's going to be a battle on that side. Wherever DK Metcalf, I think Jalen Ramsey is probably going to follow him, and it's going to be just an insanely fun matchup to watch. I think this is definitely a game where Tyler Lockett can go off, and maybe even DK Metcalf. DK Metcalf might come out, prove himself against one of the best corners in the league, and just absolutely go off and torch Jalen Ramsey. That'd be great to see. But really, I think this is a game that Tyler Lockett can really come back and have a huge game after a couple poor performances, or at least performances where he's not getting as much production as he normally does. And when it comes to the Seahawks offense, of course, recently they have not been doing insanely well like they were early on in the season. Against the Cardinals, we had a pretty poor outing with 3 touchdowns for Russell Wilson, but also 3 interceptions. Last week against the Bills, Russell Wilson had 3 total touchdowns, but he did have 4 total turnovers. So really, there's definitely some inconsistency for this football team right now, and I think that stems with the running game. With Chris Carson and Carlos Hyde being out the past few weeks, it's become quite clear that Deejay Dallas and Travis Homer are just not able to keep up and not able to produce in the run game like Chris Carson or Carlos Hyde were able to. Travis Homer and Deejay Dallas are definitely some good players. I really like those guys, but honestly, when it comes down to it, they're just not providing as much of a threat as Chris Carson or Carlos Hyde would, and it's really making our offense one-dimensional, and that's not even one-dimensional by choice. It's one-dimensional because we really just can't produce in the run game. We've been insanely inefficient over the past 2 games, with Deejay Dallas being the main guy. He's just not really able to get anything going like Chris Carson was able to, and that's a big problem for us. The Seahawks have been a run-first team for a long time, and although we're allowing Russ to cook and putting the ball into his hands more this year, we still need a run game. With Travis Homer and Deejay Dallas, our run game has been inefficient, and honestly, it's definitely hurt the offensive passing game. With the run game being as inefficient as it has been behind Deejay Dallas and Travis Homer, our passing game has definitely taken a hit behind that, because we use play action a lot, and that's because we have a very good running back in Chris Carson, we have Carlos Hyde, we have guys that are actually threats in the run game that can get you yards that the teams actually have to play run defense for. And right now with Deejay Dallas and Travis Homer, teams really don't have to play run defense. They're just stopping them behind the line in base sets. And honestly, it's really hurting our pass game because we don't have that running threat that makes our play action a viable strategy. And with the Seahawks defense being as bad as they have been this season, being historically bad in the passing game, really, I don't have much belief in this defense. Of course, I want our defense to play well, but I would definitely put my faith in Russell Wilson over this defense. So I definitely think this is going to be a game where it's the Seahawks offense versus the Rams defense. I think the Rams offense is going to do fine against our just atrocious defense right now. Maybe our defense will pick it up and we'll have an insane defensive game like against the 49ers, but that 49ers team had a ton of injuries, and honestly, that was just an easy game for our defense. I would have hoped that we did well, but we still gave up 3 touchdowns to Nick Mullins in the 4th quarter. And really, when I look at this game, this is obviously a Seahawks offensive game versus a Rams defensive game, like I said. And I think this game really comes down to whether or not Chris Carson or Carlos Hyde plays, because Deejay Dallas and Travis Homer are not really doing well in the run game, and maybe they'll pick it up if neither of those players play, but I don't think that this offense is going to be doing well without Chris Carson and Carlos Hyde. Chris Carson and Carlos Hyde are both guys that can get you yards. They are consistent running backs that are going to fight for extra yards, and they're actually a threat in the run game, and defenses have to worry about them. And without them, our play action passes aren't really working because teams don't care about the run. They're really just saying, oh wow, they just faked a handoff and we know they're going to pass, because they can't run the ball efficiently. And really, because our run game has been so inefficient, so inconsistent behind Deejay Dallas and Travis Homer, we need Chris Carson or Carlos Hyde to be back, one of them at least, because the Seahawks need some guy that can come in and be an actual threat in the run game that defenses have to worry about, so that our run game, 1, does better, and 2, our pass game can actually have a threat and allow the play action to actually work. Honestly, if we don't get Chris Carson or Carlos Hyde back, I think that we still have a chance to win this game because I have a lot of faith in Russell Wilson. This guy does not lose twice. He's 32-8 in games after losing in the regular season, so I definitely think he's going to come out and play a lot better than he did last week. Just like against the Cardinals, how he did bad, he came back the next week, went absolutely crazy against the 49ers. I think he's going to come out, have a very good game, but honestly, our defense needs to step it up. And really, I think that we need Chris Carson or Carlos Hyde back because our run game has basically been non-existent in the past few games. But overall, I think this is definitely going to be a good game. The Rams offense is nothing spectacular. The Rams defense is one of the best in the league. The Seahawks offense is one of the best in the league, and the Seahawks defense is not good whatsoever. So honestly, I think this is going to be a good game. Definitely, like I said, Seahawks offense versus Rams defense. Going to be a fun matchup to watch. Rams-Seahawks games are almost always very good, just like all NFC West matchups, because the NFC West is such a strong division. Honestly, I think this is going to be a very good game. I think it's going to be a close game like all Rams-Seahawks games are. I'm going to say a game where both teams do well on offense, but it really comes down to the wire. 34-31, either the Seahawks winning or the Rams winning on basically a game-winning field goal or something close to that. I think that this could definitely be a higher scoring game, maybe 37-34 on a field goal type of winning situation. But honestly, I think this is going to be a close game like most Rams-Seahawks games are. And I definitely think it's going to be a fun game to watch like most NFC West matchups are. And going into next week's Thursday night game against the Arizona Cardinals, the Seahawks really are going to need a win right here. And they're going to need to get some momentum going against a tough Arizona Cardinals team because we saw how good that team can be in our last matchup against them. Their defense can play well. Their offense can play well. We need to get a win here. We need to get some momentum, and then we need to go play on that Thursday night game and come out and play well. So with that, that's going to do it for this video. Like I said, I think this is going to be a very close matchup, a very fun game to watch, like most NFC West games are, like most Rams-Seahawks games are. 37-34 or 34-31, basically a high-scoring game where it's differentiated by a field goal. But let me know down below what you think in the comments. How do you think this game is going to go for the Seahawks? How do you think it's going to go for the Rams? Make sure you leave a like if you enjoyed it and subscribe if you're new. And with that, I'd like to thank you for watching. Have a great day.